Hello and welcome back, guys. I'm your host, Bob Zombie, and today we're going to be reviewing Resident Evil 2. Now, this is going to be much more than a review. It's going to be like a full retrospective of the history and everything that has to do with this classic game, as it is one of my favorites. And I figure, what better time than now to go over it with the remake on the horizon. This review slash retrospective slash whatever you guys want to call it, it's going to be pretty long. It's going to be 40 to 50, maybe even an hour long of a review slash retrospective, because I'm covering all the story, the history behind the game, and its development cycle, all that stuff, all in one video, as well as the many different ports and what made them different. So with that said, guys, let's get on with the review. Resident Evil 2 was released on January 21st, 1998, and is one of the greatest sequels ever made for a video game, and is personally one of my favorite video games in general. So I figured with the remake right around the corner, why not look back and see what made the game so great. So this game has got a pretty substantial history revolving around its development cycle. The game was put into development almost immediately after the first game was completed.
Resident Evil.
I guess the folks over at Capcom knew they had gold on their hands after seeing the positive reaction with the original title. The sequel aimed to up the ante and expand the universe by exploring the nearby Raccoon City during a viral outbreak. Resident Evil 2 was about 90% complete when the original build was scrapped. Dubbed by the fans as Resident Evil 1.5, this build was dramatically different from the final product. In 1.5, you still played as Leon, and it still took place in Raccoon City during an outbreak. However, the police station and surrounding environments were dramatically different. Instead of playing as Claire, you play as Elsa Walker, a college student who races motorbikes. This build was scrapped as it felt too similar to the previous title, and the development team felt the environments was too bland. It would have also wrapped up Resident Evil's story sooner, as the outbreak was worldwide instead of quarantined to just Raccoon City. There were a lot of other differences as well, and I will be covering them in the next video, so be on the lookout for that. But as of right now, let's take a look at the final release of Resident Evil 2. The original release was for the PlayStation 1. It was a 2-disc game. The first disc had Leon S. Kennedy's story. The second disc had Claire Redfield's story. Leon is a rookie cop who stumbled upon the outbreak his first day on the job. Claire Redfield's in town looking for her older brother Chris, the main antagonist from the previous game. It starts out with both survivors entering the city not knowing of the horrors that lie before them. They end up finding each other only to be ripped apart by the madness around them. They do, however, have a plan to meet up at the police station as they think it's the safest option. You are then thrown into the world of survival horror, surrounded by zombies and fire, and some zombies that are on fire. And let me tell you, if you're not used to the controls or have never played a Resident Evil game before, this can be a really hard first area for a video game. This game does not hold your hand at all. Unlike the first game of the series, the first game sort of eased you into the first zombie. You actually had to go through a couple rooms and sort of learn how to move before you could run. Then you got to see your first zombie, which was really hard to kill by itself. You gotta think, at the time, people were not used to playing games in a 3D environment. Everything before this was 2D for the most part, making that one zombie really difficult to master the first time round, let alone with the tank controls. I personally like tank controls, but I know some people absolutely hate them and never got used to them. Anyhow, on your way to the police station, you find the city is an absolute wreck, and you stumble upon a survivor, Robert Kendo, owner of the gun shop. He seems to be injured, perhaps bitten. He was about to shoot you when he realizes you're not a zombie. He comes over to lock the door, and when you walk away, zombies burst through the door, killing him almost immediately. You can then choose to take the shotgun off his corpse. However, if you don't pick anything up on the way to the police station, you get this really cool Easter egg. Brad, the pilot that leaves you stranded in the first game.
Oh! Don't go!
Wow, what an asshole!
Is found as an undead corpse in the stairway underneath the entrance of the police station building. He is kind of a super zombie and takes multiple hits. However, if you manage to kill him and search his corpse, you will actually find a special key that unlocks hidden costumes. as well as a pretty bitchin' revolver for Claire. It wouldn't be until the next game that you finally found out what happened to good old Chicken Heart, aka Brad Vickers. So you make your way into the police station after evading the undead citizens of Raccoon City, only to find out that most of the doors are locked and no one's here. There is only one survivor, Marvin, a Raccoon City cop who is mortally wounded. He explains what happens and retells the events of the first game briefly. If you play as Leon, he actually tells you they had to cancel his welcoming party, and you can actually see decorations among the wreckage that was once the Raccoon City Police Department. Marvin, knowing his time is pretty much up, gives you a key and orders you to go save the other survivors at gunpoint. The police station looks very unique and has unique puzzle elements like in the first game. This is because the building used to be an art museum. If you take the door to the left side of the entrance, it will lead you to the room with a window. As you go to the next room, you'll find something really quick on the outside of the building. If you're not paying attention, you can miss it, and there are some players that thought they were seeing things at the time. This next room introduces you to what exactly was on the outside of the police station, one of the creepiest enemies in the Resident Evil series, the Licker. As you're walking through the room, you see droplets of blood, and eventually a pile where this cutscene takes place. It almost looks like an inside-out person walking around and jumping like a frog. It has huge claws and, you guessed it, a big-ass tongue, which it uses to pierce its enemies' necks. These enemies can be avoided though as long as you're careful, as they are blind and rely on hearing to attack. So if you're slow enough, you can actually avoid them without attacking. Lickers are a further mutation of a zombie. They are the next level of a Crimson Head zombie. You can even find a half Crimson, half Licker zombie in Resident Evil Outbreak. While navigating the police station, you can see that the hallways are a wreck and have been barricaded by previous survivors. If you're too close to the walls on your way back, zombie hands can come out of the boards and grab you. It's a really good jump scare, caught a lot of people off guard at the time. So you eventually get to the Stars room, where it turns out that Claire's brother Chris is no longer in town, which is the whole reason why Claire's here in the first place. They decide to investigate further and find a way out of the city. Depending on who you play as, you can also run into a scared little girl, Sherry Birkin, aka daughter of the main antagonist, William Birkin, but we'll get more to him later on. Our survivors find out the only way out of the city is through the sewer system below the police station. Leon eventually meets Ada Wong, who almost shoots him, mistaking him for a zombie with that uniform on. However, none of the other zombies in the game have that outfit, and even Marvin is just wearing a standard police uniform outfit. It looks like Leon was supposed to be a part of a SWAT team or something. I don't know why his uniform's so different looking than everyone else's. Speaking of Marvin, you actually go back for him later on in the game, only for him to turn into a zombie, which is a really cool sequence. I always try to put Marvin out the coolest way possible. Total decapitation of the head. Ada is looking for her boyfriend and is apparently very impatient.
Ada, wait!
Leon and Ada go to Ben, a reporter locked up in the Raccoon City Police Department holding cell. Leon threatens to keep Ben locked up in there, but Ben has no intentions of going anywhere, as there are more than just zombies roaming the streets. You then hear William Birkin yell from an unknown location. Meanwhile, upstairs, Claire hears a scream after blowing up a crashed helicopter with C4 in order to get into the police chief's office. There is a girl on the table with a wound to her abdomen. As Claire gets closer, the chair turns around. It's none other than Police Chief Irons himself, who almost mistakes Claire as a zombie. He explains that this is the mayor's daughter, and she is killed by a zombie and will eventually turn into one if not taken care of properly. Claire then finds Sherry, who once again runs away after hearing the same monster yell. The police chief is gone, and you find an entrance to an escape route in his office which leads to the sewers. Leon learns from Ben that you can gain access into the sewer system via the dog kennel in the other room. Leon eventually gets separated from Ada and has to unlock the final door to gain full access into the sewer system. Claire eventually finds everything she needs to gain access to the hidden escape route while also reuniting with Sherry. While on her way down, she finds what looks like to be a torture room and the police chief with a gun. It turns out that the chief was working with Umbrella to cover their tracks, most likely having a close relationship with Albert Wesker and William Birkin. Leon discovers the same information from Ben. Both Ben and Chief Irons die at the hands of William Birkin, one ripped apart, and the other goes out with a chest burster from aliens, except it's William's offspring, not an actual alien.
Everyone's gonna die!
It's cool either way though. You then fight the offspring or William Birkin himself. William looks creepy as hell with his lab outfit in tatters, and he grows a gigantic eye on his shoulder. In this form, he uses a gigantic pipe. As far as his cute offspring goes, this thing is just spewing more babies on what looks like acid. The offspring is far easier to kill than William Birkin himself. In the sewer system, you eventually run into Annette Birkin. As Claire, nothing eventful really happens, but as Leon, you get shot. Ada runs after her and Annette explains how the outbreak started. William Birkin finally completed the successor to the T-virus, known as the G-virus, which is purple. Conveniently, as he said,
"No one will ever take you away from me."
a group of Umbrella mercenaries come in and demand it. Not to worry though, as his little pistol will save him, while the mercenaries have 2 automatic machine guns as well as bulletproof vests. This dumb bastard ends up scaring himself by knocking down his own thermos and getting surprised. As the soldier sees he's off guard, he opens fire, mortally wounding him. They then take the sample. Shortly after, Annette barges in, leaving him to go see if she can get something to take care of his wounds. I'm sorry, but he's got more holes in him than Swiss cheese. I think he's pretty much done there. But I'd be wrong, as William Birkin actually directly injects the G-virus into his stomach. The reason for this is the G-virus has healing properties. Side effects include headache, death, and turning into a crazy blob monster. Anyhow, William manages to kill the Umbrella mercenaries, but also steps on a G-virus container in the process. Rats get to the G-virus container and spread it all across the city. Annette either runs off or gets bitch slapped depending on who you play, and then you gotta fight a giant alligator. Sherry at this time is separated from Claire and ends up getting infected by William's offspring, which is really fucking gross. Leon gets patched up and carries on his merry way as the bullet was just in his shoulder. You make it out to the sewers rather quick and end up at a cable car. The cable car is then attacked by William Birkin's hand and actually gets severely damaged by Ada. After a hallway of zombies, you stumble upon another vehicle that allows you to descend to Umbrella's underground lab. You then have your second fight with William Birkin. This time he mutates even further and grows another head, while his other one fades to the side of his chest. The giant eye gets even bigger, and he's looking more like a tyrant from the original game. Ada gets injured. After beating the monster, you arrive at the lab. You find the bodies disappeared, which I don't know why this would be surprising. All the enemies disappear once you go back into the room, but whatever. Ada and Sherry get left behind in a save room, as Claire and Leon find a way out of the lab. During the lab, you will come across a new enemy only seen in Resident Evil 2. They are called Ivy, and these are huge humanoid plants that spew acid, can whip you when they're dead, and can also melt your head off. You will also run into further mutated lickers, who are stronger, they have a darker tone, and they have one hooked claw on each side, instead of the normal animal paw shapes you've seen before. Also, naked and lab coat zombies are found in this area. A side boss can also be found, but is not necessary to the main plot. It's a giant moth and it really doesn't put up a fight, but it can poison you. I'll explain more about that room later. As we get to the end, Annette points a gun at Leon, as a self-destruct sequence has been activated. She claims that him and Ada are spies, but Leon has no idea what's going on and doesn't believe her. She is crushed by pipes and drops the G-virus, which, for whatever reason, Leon picks up. As Leon goes to get Ada, Ada comes from out of nowhere and points a gun at him, demanding the virus. Leon talks her down, only to be shot by Annette. Ada then falls off the bridge, Leon just barely saving her. Annette somehow dies in the process and just falls over. Ada tells Leon to let her go and she's not worth it or whatever. She then lets herself go, and Leon, being heartbroken, throws the virus with her. On Claire's side of things, Annette is attacked by Birkin and is slowly dying. Claire stumbles upon her body, and Annette gives Claire instructions on how to cure Sherry. Claire makes the cure and heads to the exit. They make it to the elevator that will lead them to the train that leads to the outside of the city. You have to fight William yet again as he crashes through the ceiling. This time he's mutated even further. He now has 4 arms. If you're playing as Leon, I suggest using the flamethrower, as it's the easiest way to kill him. But after you do kill that first form, it's obviously not over. You get to fight another form, which is like this big dog shark head looking thing with like a billion teeth. And it jumps around, and it can kill you really quickly. I wouldn't underestimate this boss. I had a lot of runs that ended at this point because I wasn't careful. Leon or Claire finally beat him and ride the elevator toward the end. The place is starting to blow up and the train is already moving. Leon or Claire will hop on and that's the end of the game. Or is it? Well, it turns out it's not. We still have a Part B scenario to go through. And you will have to play whoever you didn't play your first time through. With this brings us the new Zap system. As you may already know if you've ever played before, the things you do with the character in A scenario will affect the other character in the B scenario. And both characters have an A and a B game, making this game highly replayable. For example, in the weapons locker room you can find an expansion pack that will up the amount of items you can hold. And on the other hand, you can find an automatic machine gun. If you take both of them, there'll be nothing for the B mode counterpart save. The Moth boss fight I mentioned earlier also heavily uses the zapping system. In order to gain access into the special room, you have to first beat the Moth boss in one file, register your fingerprint signing as guest, go to another room, also register your fingerprint, and it's a 2-step verification process, so you actually have to do it with 2 characters. On your B scenario, after defeating the Moth again and going to that same exact door, you'll be able to unlock it. Now, the reason why it's good to get the machine gun in B scenario is there's actually an extension clip that you can only get in B scenario. So in A scenario, you might as well take the side pack, while in B scenario, give them the machine gun. It really helps clear out those tyrants. Oh, wait, I didn't get to them yet. Needless to say, this system is really good and a lot of fun, and it's highly replayable. It is rumored to be in the remake somehow, but that's yet to be seen, as Capcom has stated that it's not there, but there's rumors of it being there somehow. In the B scenario, you start off on the other side of the wreckage and get to the police station a lot faster, and you can actually see the crashing of the helicopter I spoke of before. After putting out the helicopter's fire, you actually hear another helicopter in the distance. A cutscene plays and a creature drops into the RPD. It's none other than Mr. X, a tyrant developed by Umbrella to cover their tracks. Its mission, to kill any and all survivors and collect a G-Virus sample. Needless to say, this bastard is Nemesis before Nemesis was a thing, as it follows you throughout your journey, stalking you throughout the game. This monster is super strong and it takes quite a lot of hits. If you do manage to take him down, know it's only temporary, as he gets up almost immediately as you leave. The good news is, if you search his body, he will drop ammo for you to use. A quick player tip: if you see any dead bodies that aren't zombies, always remember to search them after the description, as they almost always have ammo on them. Back to Tyrant. It will eventually mutate into Super Tyrant during the end stages of the game. After being pushed into a lava with the G-Virus, it becomes a 2-clawed lava-infused beast, dead set on slashing urine, but you got a rocket launcher from a mysterious person. Anyhow, with the B scenario, you will see a couple more new locations, as well as the items being mixed around a bit. Oh, and don't forget all new jump scares. The plot is mostly the same. You get a little bit more with the Tyrant. You also get to see what happened while your A scenario was going on. You get to see that 8 is still alive, and depending on how you do things, Sherry never gets infected, which is kind of weird, but whatever. We even get to see what happens after the train leaves. It turns out William survived and he hopped on the train, mutating even more into a giant blob-like monster. You end up killing it again, but guess what? It's not dead. He mutates even further engulfing the whole train. Joke's on him though, because we're gonna blow that motherfucker up thanks to Sherry. Everyone jumps off and Birkin finally dies. Our heroes are on the outskirts of the city. When they say it's not over, they still have to find Chris and take down Umbrella. But that's not the end of the review, just the story portions of it. And I have to say, this is probably my favorite Resident Evil story because it all clicks so well together. I really love the mad scientist that slowly gets overtaken by his creation aspect. The little details of still being able to see his face on the side. This game upped the horror and the monsters and so much more compared to the first game, and it's crazy how truly creative they were. Sure, they took little inspirations from things like Aliens and other movies, but the outcome was really good. Not only are the monster designs good in the game, the gore is crazy awesome. They sort of took a note from Mortal Kombat. Once dead, the camera zooms up to either Leon or Claire, the background goes black, and you get this awesome close-up death animation that always ends in a bloody splatter or you died. And there sure are a lot of ways to die. I also really love the amount of weapons in this game, as each character has their own set. Claire gets a handgun, a revolver handgun, a grenade launcher with 3 types of rounds, a crossbow, a machine gun, a rocket launcher, and a spark shot. Leon can get a handgun, a shotgun, a Magnum Desert Eagle, and all 3 of those weapons can be upgraded if found. The handgun can get turned into a 3-round burst shot style gun. The shotgun gets a stock as well as a barrel extension and is crazy powerful. The Magnum gets a barrel extension. It also gains power. Leon can also get a flamethrower as well as the machine gun and the rocket launcher. I really love the upgrade system. It was really fun finding new parts for your guns and making them even more badass. The music in this game is so legendary and fits the mood and tone of the game perfectly. It really makes you feel like you're in an isolated, eerie place that used to once be filled with life. The voice acting's still cheesy, but is far better than the original. The sound design for the enemies are also superb. The zombies sound like they're always in pain and shuffling around. The lickers are terrifying when you hear their hiss, but can't see them yet. Although I'm not a fan of the Leon and Ada love interest subplot of the game, it just kind of feels forced. I mean, how many times you gotta say Ada wait before you get a hint? Also, Ada's gotta be like the worst spy ever. All she does is tell everyone her name. Like, don't you think, you'd make something up if you were a real spy? I love the rest of the game's story, however. This entry of the series actually has a pretty high body count. So while we're in this review, let's go over it real quick. Let's start off from the beginning. The first kill of the game, William Birkin himself. He was shot to death / injected with a G-Virus. Next we have the mercenaries carrying the G-Virus, who all get killed by getting slashed to death by Birkin. I believe there were a total of 3 killed and 1 survived. That one survivor being Hunk. Then there was a truck driver in the beginning cutscene who was bitten by the gas station attendant. Robert Kendo was the next one up, being killed by a group of zombies as they burst through his non-bulletproof windows. We now get into the 2 cops from the helicopter crash. One was eaten by zombies and the other one got shot by the other guy who was getting eaten by the zombies, and then they all blew up. We then lost Marvin due to the infection, thus turning into a zombie. We have the mayor's daughter who died off screen, but I'm sure Chief Irons was somehow involved. Don't worry, Iron gets his by either being ripped apart or chest burster. Ben sadly suffers the same fate as Chief Irons. And the last death of the game was Annette Birkin, who was either crushed or slashed to death by Birkin. I liked it better when she was slashed to death. So I'd have to say Ben and Irons have the coolest deaths in the game, and the mayor's daughter has the lamest. There are definitely more men killed in this game, at 11 men and 2 women. There's also the unlockable scenario, the 4th survivor, where you get to play as Hunk. You as Hunk have to make it on the roof of the Raccoon Police Department building to extract the G-Virus from the city. You have limited health and limited ammo, and the route there is filled with zombies and monsters. Hunk actually survived the encounter with Birkin. I guess that's why they call him Mr. Death. But that's not all. You can also unlock Tofu, which is the same as the Hunk scenario, but you play as a piece of tofu with only a knife. So this is for the hardcore players only. If you have the DualShock version for the PlayStation 1, you can actually get Extreme Battle Mode, where you go around dismantling bombs. The cool thing about this mode is you can actually unlock Chris Redfield, and he actually has a new vest. Replacing the Stars logo is his Made in Heaven patch. So while we're here, let's briefly go over all the releases of Resident Evil 2. So we have the original Resident Evil 2 for the PS1, then we have the DualShock version for the PS1, which introduced that new Extreme Battle Mode minigame. Then you have the PC version, which is awesome because you can mod the ever-loving hell out of it. There are slight differences, but nothing too major. Next we have the very impressive Nintendo 64 port, which has all of the cutscenes but are very compressed because it actually fits on one Nintendo 64 card. This version is the easiest as it's more accessible to the cheat codes. You can also change the color of the blood as well as the gore level. So for your babies out there, you can have blue blood or green blood, but for me, I'm sticking to the red shit. You then have the ever popular Dreamcast port, which probably looks the best out of all the consoles, besides maybe the GameCube. It has added VMU functionality, which allows you to see your ammo count and your status of your character. So if you're fine, it'll show fine. If you're caution, it'll show caution, so on and so forth. The Dreamcast and the PC version offer also a gallery which you can unlock different art assets from the development team. The game was also ported to the Nintendo GameCube. I don't know if you could really call this a port, but the game was also released on the PlayStation Network and actually had a physical version released in a Japanese exclusive Stars Pack. This allowed you to play it on the PlayStation Portable as well as your PlayStation 3 console. There was also a crappy version of the game developed and made for the Game.com, or Gamecom, by Tiger Electronics of all things. It's actually pretty impressive how much the game they put on the cart, but honestly it's nothing compared to the actual release. There was also a prototype for a Resident Evil 2 port on the Game Boy Advance of all things, and thank God this trash never came out, because just look at Leon, he looks all goofy and walks like a dork. With all that said, Resident Evil 2 was truly a step up from the original Resident Evil title. Anteed up everything the best way possible. The backgrounds look better, the character models look better, the enemies and everything just was such a great upgrade. Just this small detail of seeing character damage made such a big difference with how the game flowed compared to the original. You see, in the original game, no matter how many times you got hit, your character still looked the same, right? The only way you could tell there was something wrong with your character would be to pause the game, go in the menu, and see that, oh wow, my character's in danger, I better heal. Well, in this game, they actually have visual identifiers to let you know that you need to heal your character. It also adds another element of horror to the game as it slows your character down the more you get hit. In caution, your character holds to its side in pain. But in danger, you slow down and stagger and can barely run away from whatever you're trying to run from. All in all, I have to say, if you haven't played this game yet, I can't recommend it enough. It is one of the best classic games out there. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had fun making it. It took me a long time to do it, but I think it was worth it. Now, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, as I will be having more Resident Evil content coming on the way, as well as some other stuff. Our next video is going to be a retrospective, or sort of a look and all the information on Resident Evil 1.5, which was the build before Resident Evil 2. I briefly mentioned it in this video, but there's so much more information to go into that it has to be its own video. If not, this thing would probably be like 2 hours long. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time on the Bob Zombie channel. Like I said, like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. Let's get a community going. Thank you guys so much.